This episode of The Memory Palace is brought to you by Article. We are big fans of Article here at The Memory Palace. This room of the palace, the ballroom where I'm sitting right now, it's palatial, trust me, is lit beautifully by a legit beautiful lamp from Article. This stuff is of extraordinarily high quality. It is truly lovely furniture that's influenced by, mid-century modern and Scandinavian styles. I have a feeling you're really going to like it. If you've never checked it out before, summer and warmer weather is right around the corner here in the Northern Hemisphere. And they really have fantastic outdoor furniture. It's totally worth checking out. Go to article.com and take a look. The stuff looks great, and it is made with all these outdoor-friendly materials like teak and acacia wood and granite and galvanized steel and rattan. And it comes to you with a flat delivery fee of $49, regardless of what you're buying and how big the order is. So go to www.article.com/memorypalace and get $50 off your first purchase of $100 or more. That is www.article.com/memorypalace. Go check it out. The Memory Palace is brought to you by Rate Marketplace. If you're a homeowner, did you know it takes just minutes to see if you're eligible to save up to $4,000 a year? Rate Marketplace is a home financing engine that uses a fast and easy online process. With Rate Marketplace, you can drop the paperwork and in a few minutes get a custom mortgage solution from your phone or computer. If you want to get started and see your savings at ratemarketplace.com/memorypalace. That's ratemarketplace.com/memorypalace. They are an equal housing lender. MLS number 1137890. This is The Memory Palace. I'm Nate DiMeo. The observatory on the hill was old even then, in 1877. And the worn-out floorboards would groan when Edward Pickering climbed the dark staircase to the telescope in the tower. The telescope had done good work. It had found Saturn's 8th moon, had first spotted that planet's innermost ring. The first daguerreotype of a star, Vega, the second brightest in the night sky that hung over Harvard and its old observatory on the hill, was taken with that telescope. But those discoveries happened long ago, when the old observatory was new. So what could its new director do with it, with its outmoded telescope, and with its staff of nattering young men, the Harvard students, who were phoning it in, or telegraphing it in, or whatever you could say of lazy, entitled grad students in the late 19th century? These guys drove Professor Pickering nuts. He had work to do. He had observations to make. He had data to collect, numbers to crunch. And these bright Harvard men couldn't be bothered to make a careful calculation. Pickering said his maid could do a better job. So he hired her. For 25 cents an hour, Williamina Fleming came to work at the observatory. She swapped a feather duster for a pencil, a wash tub for an inkwell, and did simple mathematics for Mr. Pickering, adding up columns of figures, filling spreadsheets in leather-bound ledgers, sitting at a desk in a dusty corner of the observatory's 3rd floor. And at the end of her shift, she'd turn her work over to her professor and watch his face light up at the neatness of the rows, the clarity of her penmanship, how a 1 could never be confused with a 7, how even after long hours, her tired eyes never seemed to mistake a 3 for a 2. And he'd smile at his best assistant, this woman who had once been his maid. At 25 cents an hour, he hired more maids, and school teachers, and store clerks, women who'd rather work in a dusty office than a mill or a grocer or a shirtwaist factory. There's a photograph of Edward Pickering on the steps of the observatory, surrounded by 13 women, each with high neck collars and long dresses that hung down over hidden petticoats and corsets to the tops of their shoes. Pickering is in the top row, in his 3-piece suit, professorial and rumpled. If there aren't patches on the elbows, there might as well be. He wears a thick walrus mustache and a look of smug self-satisfaction. Maybe because he's the one man surrounded by all these women. This group his colleagues joked about and called Pickering's harem. Maybe it was just because he knew he was getting an incredible bargain. At 25 cents an hour, the women were getting far less than his former male assistants. Far less than any man, really, any converted butler or baker or bookkeeper, would ever have taken to do the tasks set before them. But he knew that few men at any price could do any better than Williamina Fleming, a woman he came to trust and admire, and who discovered the Horsehead Nebula, or Margaret Harwood, who went on to be the first woman to run her own observatory, or Joanna Mackey, who discovered the first nova in the Lyra constellation. They're in the picture, near the gloating Pickering. Maybe he's smug because these women and their cheap labor allowed him to do important work and make the types of astronomical discoveries that no one thought were even possible to make in such an old observatory with such antiquated instruments. For Pickering came to realize that the future of astronomy wasn't in glowing points in the sky, but in data points, in mathematics, in well-ordered numbers legibly rendered in charts and tables, and accurately filed and made searchable and shareable. And for that I will now commend the professor, before I set him aside. And commend Williamina Fleming, and Annie Jump Cannon, and Joanna Mackey, and Margaret Harwood, and Molly O'Reilly, and Edith Gill, and Evelyn Leland, and Florence Cushman, and Marion White, and Grace Brooks, and Arvil Walker, and Ida Woods, and Alta Carpenter, and Mabel Gill. There in the photograph, and the other women, not pictured, who worked for Pickering over the years, and who, at 25 cents an hour, worked together in that dusty office in the third floor of the old observatory in the hill, all day, day after day, adding up rows, cross-referencing columns, filling ledgers with figures, making sure their sevens didn't look like ones, making sure the lace ruffles at the possible trajectories of mortars and cannons, creating charts and graphs that guided the weapons of men right then, fighting in France, in Italy, in North Africa, or the women after the war at the University of Pennsylvania, who plotted potential paths of intercontinental ballistic missiles trained on the Soviet Union, and then plugged that information literally into the first mechanical computer, a room-sized thing called ENIAC, that led to something smaller, and something smaller still, that made the women's jobs obsolete. For 25 cents an hour, the women in the old observatory in the hill did the work of laptops, and not particularly smartphones. They spent years of their lives on work that takes fractions of seconds today. Granted. Yes. Fine. But these women ordered the heavens without ever needing to look up. Some had washed floors, had counted bags of flour, noted numbers of nails and screws and shoe polish tins on store shelves, or transcribed, or filed, or were dictated to. And now they counted stars. Counted all the stars. Some 400,000. Every one that could be seen back then. Unaware of how many more stars were out there. Or what a woman would be able to see one day. They counted every one.